Bihar at one time was so pathetic and then changed when political leadership changed. And he is quoting the global resources, World Bank 2005. It says this is about Bihar. There are this man ruled from in 1990s to till 2005. We'll see that here. Lalu Prasad Yadav's regime. This is what the World Bank said on his rule. There also appears to be a breakdown of hierarchy and the loss of control by DMs. Heads of departments and departmental secretaries over subordinate personnel. The DMs appear to be frustrated by centralization, absence of support and understanding from their superiors, and inaction on reports of malfeasance, inefficiency, and subordinate levels. So this is about World Bank, because what Lalu Prasad Yadav did was he centralized, and for smallest thing, for anything more than 25 lakhs, he needs give the approval. So highly centralized, and he was not able to do. And because he is deciding on everything, the hierarchy broke down. And so inaction and reports of malfeasance and efficiency subordinate level. Just he was saying that the breakdown of hierarchy. And then New York Times says this in 2010, but on Lalu's regime, though the regime ended in 2005. Criminals could count on police for protection. Criminals count on protection and not prosecution. Kidnapping was one of the state's most profitable business. Violence raged between Muslims and Hindus, between upper caste and lower caste. The state was led by politicians who used divisive identity politics to entrench their rule. It was so corrupt, it required a newly coined phrase, the Jungle Raj. This is what New York Times said. Okay. He is making one society related point in this issue related to administration. Can you identify? He's talking about society, but it is related to administration. Who can identify? This is an issue. Can somebody identify? What is the main point in this? Okay. Divisive identity politics.
People identifying themselves with certain things, divisive identity politics.
Caste. Okay. So Lalu Prasad Yadav said, what is needed is not development, but pride. Pride in what? Pride that our caste man is ruling. So this is how it became society, identity politics. Identity politics meant our man. Okay. It is divisive. And what has to be done for the benefit of all is missing. It is about patronage politics. So society is divisive and politics affected. So this is the sequence. Society affects politics and politics affects bureaucracy. Divisive politics expressing themselves in politics. How is bureaucracy supposed to work? Rule of law. Rule of law doesn't work when there is identity politics and the politics and administration is about patronage distribution. So these are our criminals. These are our contractors. These are our caste people. Others are to be discriminated. So that is what happened. And then turnaround took place. Amazing. During 2004-5 to 2014-15, where Nitish Kumar ruled, Bihar's income at constant prices grew by 10.1% per annum, significantly higher than national average. You know what he did? He basically trusted some IAS officers, gave them power, and they did everything. Lalu regime was centralized and Nitish Kumar regime was centralized, but centralized to do good thing, of course, with people's participation. And one officer, for example, Pratyaya Amrit, he was the only IAS officer that picked in 2011 the individual category for the PM's Excellence Award in Public Administration. He was in charge of certain very important portfolios like energy, power, and then recently health. So he trusted some officers and did everything. Lalu Prasad also trusted certain officers, but destroyed the rest of the system. And economic growth in Bihar changed the social situation also. And so the author says Bihar gives a very clear case of if politicians want to do something, if they're serious about it, even if the situation is very, very bad, that time it was being called a Jungle Raj, things can be changed. That is his point. So committed officers under a political leadership willing to change. Otherwise, what will officers do? So coming to that question, well socialized, what are they supposed to do? There is no support system this side and that side. So the author says political leadership is very important. And if there is a political leadership, he will choose the right kind of officers at the top level and the whole system can be ignited. So previously we discussed Swachh Bharat. It is a much improved scheme, much better scheme compared to others. Tap water, much better compared to others. So political leadership and certain top officers who are committed. So that can change. That is what he was saying. Okay. So a quick turnaround simply after change of political leadership. And next he discusses, in the next chapter, he discusses what are the structural reasons for corruption. Okay. One reason is the kind of laws. The laws are the cause of the corruption. Why? Because laws force some kind of or facilitate some kind of behavior, force good people to do bad things and bad people to make use of the situation. Raghuram Rajan, in his book 2012, he said many lucrative sectors untouched during the reforms. For example, oil, gas, mining, heavy industry. So they were following the old procedures, but then these sectors became important. And some people found it a great opportunity to make money with great discretion to the GY ministries. This spread corruption. For example, coal was being allocated in a particular way. Telecom was being allocated in a particular way. And it was not changed. But then the growth became important. And the private sector could make use of it and became a great source of corruption. So how laws play a role in corruption? This is at the higher level. The author says this is true even at the lower levels. For example, criminal cases were launched against those tribals who tried to process or store minor forest produce in Odisha. The women who kept brooms were prosecuted in 1995. Why? Because it seems that they were supposed to collect minor forest produce, but not to make products out of it. They are supposed to collect and then give to the government agency. Whereas they made brooms. So that was because of that they were prosecuted. So hill brooms could be done only by government agency. In 2000, law passes denationalizing and freeing from the government control of 67 MFPs. So the author says you should have right laws. Okay, right laws that contribute to growth, that contribute to private initiative, and that contribute to development, and that won't give arbitrary power to the bureaucrats. If you are not doing this, you are contributing to corruption. But you know what Indian state was? Indian state was highly interfering. And so many enterprising business people just did what they thought was right. And whenever bureaucracy wanted bribes, they gave. Or when they could get things done through bribing, they did. And I don't think they felt morally guilty, because they thought the state was wrong to begin with. Do you know, when Enron came to India, Enron was so sure that it was right and the government was wrong, that it allocated huge funds to bribe the government. And do you know, under the heading education of Indians. Okay. Whether they used it as a, whether they used that phrase as a matter of conviction or simply or otherwise, many people feel that the laws were inappropriate. For example, if Reliance wanted to follow all the laws, it would never have become what it became. Okay. So in this context, okay, before answering Vishal's question, then, okay, let us answer Vishal's question first. Vishal, tell me.
Sir, in this context where you mentioned the companies or the business people think state is wrong to begin with. In the recent context, so we can see Uber, for which many files were released prior to 2016. There was this rape case in Delhi. Their executives felt it was Indian laws itself were wrong and they were on the right side. But then they still bribed many people to kind of get around.
That's true. Thank you.
So
Thank you for
what you're saying is right.
Thank you. So Vishal, do you agree now? Thank you for raising this question. Laws were wrong, and what the business was doing right, and the business was bribing to do the right things. Can you say that it's that was a situation? That was also a situation? Yes or no, Vishal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You are saying laws are changed and still companies can bribe and be corrupt. That's what you are saying. Second point.
Yeah.
So what does it mean?
Sir?
Just one second, please. Vishal, what does it mean? Tell me. Now I am asking a very straightforward question. Are you going to be corrupt or not going to be corrupt?
So to me, there is no right option here. As in, if I want to do something, the laws are not allowing, but then I still have to do that. Then I am.
So why don't you answer it very, very plainly, Vishal? Will you be corrupt or will you not be corrupt?
Yes, sir. I'll have to be corrupt too.
Thank you. Thank you. So nice of you. So nice of you. Corruption is always with reference to the law that we make. Corruption is always with reference to the law we make. You should be much more naive than Abul Kalam to think that India should be corruption free. Corruption is about a law. To think that the law is perfect and any violation of a law is wrong, is immoral. or is desirable, is undesirable, is wrong in the first place. So the basis of corruption is a law. Law can be broken to do a good thing, and law can be broken to do a bad thing. In one movie, Rajinikanth came from US. He wanted to give all his money for education purpose. But what was he made to do? He was made to bribe. So that is why it is very, very important to look at corruption as an aspect of the society, as an aspect of gap between the law and the social behavior. And then see what we should be doing with that gap. How is this gap being generated, and what we should do with this gap? Corruption is an aspect of society. It is said in developing countries there is more corruption. Do you know why? Because law is so much divorced from the society, which some people call formalism. As there is more gap between the law and the social behavior, gives a scope for corruption, because corruption is defined as the gap. Whereas when law is evolving as the society is evolving, then the gap between the law and the society will be less, and corruption also will be less. But if you think in terms of whether you are creating a just society, then that may not be a creation of just society, though technically it is not corruption. For example, politicians are allowed to take money and spend as much as they can, and the more they spend, more chances they have. All this is legalized. Then what happens to electoral corruption? Usually minimized, absent, because it's all made legal. So through one simple law, you can remove the corruption. But does it mean it creates a good political system? No. So my point is, take corruption as the gap between the law and the society, and how is this gap being generated, and where to reduce this gap, should the law be changed or should society be changed? Sometimes society should be changed, and sometimes law should be changed. So how do we create a better society is an issue, not how do you create a corruption-free society. No. Unless you are using the word corruption in a different way. Because through wrong laws, for example, if you pass a law, a bureaucrat can amass this much wealth, these many times of his income. As long as it doesn't cross these many times, it is not unfair. Then so much of behavior becomes part of his expected behavior rather than corruption. So corruption is also a product of law. Corruption is the gap between the law and the society. So what we should do regarding this gap to create a better society is an issue. Vishal, am I clear?
Somewhat clear, sir.
Okay, somewhat clear. Okay, thank you. Okay, now Bhaskar, please tell me.
This is regarding the case study of Uber files, which Vishal put it.
Regarding case study of
Uber files. Uber.
Uber. Okay. Okay.
So in that particular case, Vishal was saying that the company felt it was right.
Okay.
But it is actually an incident of whistleblowing where one of the employee came out and
Maybe we'll come to that. But Bhaskar, you just tell me about the general picture. We may go into a particular case whether it is right or wrong. I'm making a general point. What do you say about the general point?
It's actually the role of the state to minimize the tendency to maximize their self-interest. That is my take on corruption. And democracy is a slow process.
Just 1 second. No, just I mean, you stick to main points. No, do you agree with the main point? Then how do we go about is the next issue.
Yes, sir. I agree with the main point.
Yes,
I do agree with the main point.
So how do we go about it is one issue. So just don't say this is corruption and how we should reduce, not like that. Corruption is due to two things. Look at both the things. Don't take law as the sacred and people are violating. It is not like that. It's a product of both, and what should be changed is what one has to think about. Isn't it? That's what you are agreeing to, Bhaskar?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, next. And then some have given systemic reasons for corruption. Raghuram Rajan. So look at this. The poor need the savvy politicians to help them navigate through rotten public services. Politicians are needed because public services are not functioning. And the politician needs the corrupt businessman to provide funds that allows them to supply patronage to the poor and fight elections. And the corrupt businessman needs the politician to get natural resources cheaply. So these are all connected. People connected to politicians, politicians connected to business people, and business people are making use of politicians. These are all structural reasons. Wherever we can break these connections, we are creating a better society. So I want you to think in terms of how to create a better society. Or use the word corruption in a very, very larger sense. Higher sense, rather than simply as defined as per law. Bhaskar, you wanted to say something?
No, sir.
Fine. Next. Jeffrey Lott. Jeffrey Lott is very knowledgeable about India. He's a French scholar. Businessmen turned MPs not only learn about laws that Parliament is making to regulate their activities and possibly influence them, but they also come to know the bureaucrats who will implement these rules. A former chairman of LIC, SEBI, NSE, and a former finance secretary were all part of Kingfisher's board of directors when Kingfisher's man became MP. So this is a businessman entering politics. This is a new dimension. Criminals entering politics happened at one time, and now business people are entering politics. They will have influence on the policy. They will have connections with the bureaucrats. And you know, when some bureaucrats want to work, they say they want to work in private sector after retirement. This is also one way. They make connections while in service, and after that, they enter certain organizations. So this is one line. So essentially, state is not for the benefit of all. It is for the benefit of some. When it is for the benefit of some, the rules and laws are not for everybody. Or when the law is for everybody, its implementation is not for everybody. And all that is corruption. And corruption which is bad for the society. And then the author says, in 1996, UPIAS Association attempted a cleanup and voted to identify 3 most corrupt officers among themselves. Very interesting experiment. Offering the administration the details of their crimes. 2 of them were Akhand Pratap Singh and Neera Yadav. But they rose to the highest position and became chief secretaries, even after being named. Why? Because, as TSR Subramanian said, politicians need civil servants to make money. They pick and choose the weakest, and UP has the worst politicians in India. So the officers who were named to be corrupt became chief secretaries, and they served across political parties because politicians wanted. But later they were booked, and IAS Association naming them contributed to their being booked. You know, they amassed hundreds of crores. They had connections across political parties. So when politicians want to break the rules, they need appropriate civil servants. Okay. So this is what he said. So change the laws, and then he gave 2 schemes. E-seva. Tell me, how is E-seva? How does E-seva reduce corruption? E-seva, which you know is there in Andhra Pradesh, is helping the citizens to interact with the public. It's a public-private partnership. Whatever the certificates that you want to get, you can approach E-seva and get from the state. So this is a case of a public-private partnership. Public services, but private agencies are helping and hugely reduce the corruption. And then the use of IT. And Karnataka has similar scheme for land records. It is not there in Andhra Pradesh. People get help. That is Bhumi. Bhumi is there in Karnataka. So when you think of public-private partnership, you don't have to think in terms of only highways. This is a very interesting case of public-private partnership that drastically reduced the corruption. Bhaskar, you raised your hand.
This is regarding the previous example or the previous slide where we were talking about how bad people are rewarded.
How badly people are rewarded.
How bad people are rewarded. The previous slide, sir.
Exactly.
So the UPIAS Association example. So I was just having a doubt. The use of names by an IAS association, will it have any legal standing, or is it?
There is no legal standing. Actually, that is one very good procedure. Non-legally, I mean, they gave some evidence, but not legal, but voting. So it's a kind of shaming.
Okay.
This is how you create public opinion against the corruption. That is good.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
So you can say informal methods of controlling corrupt behavior, or reducing the corrupt behavior. Structural reasons, and then the schemes like this, and then deregulation, privatization, and Lokpal and Lokayukta, vigilance machinery. So use of information technology to control, to check, monitor.
Okay, my question, I'll rephrase my question. So it cannot be used as an evidence, right, sir?
It cannot be used as a
Right.
legal mechanism.
Yeah.
No, not a legal mechanism. It's only an informal way of putting pressure, and that helped in finally booking them, because there was popular opinion against them. And
Can we actually quote this in exam as well? Is it?
of course, I am giving only those examples that you can quote, because these two people were found to be corrupt, and Supreme Court was involved in removing that woman from the chief secretary's post. All the things that that are mentioned in this book can be quoted in the examination, please. Can be quoted and should be quoted. Please memorize. I will be posting the material.
Sure, sir.
Please memorize. So you should handle things at a systemic level. Okay, so these are various ways of looking at corruption. Okay. So you can write answers like this for a variety of questions. For example, it is often said poverty leads to corruption. However, there is no dearth of instances where affluent and powerful people indulge in corruption in a big way. What are the basic causes of corruption among people? Support your answer with example.